This title is a bit provocative. I know you won't agree with it. But it was used by a PR agency to launch a campaign that was developed by some of my marketing colleagues in the beef and lamb sector a few years ago. The campaign was called 5 by 25, and it was to encourage or develop skills in young adults and ensure that they had, if you like, a kit of recipes in their head that they would be able to use easily. Now, there was some fairly detailed research behind this campaign, and I'm going to very quickly go through some of it. I'm not going to dwell on it because you will have it to take away. But it was done by YouGov. It was autumn 2011, so those 25-year-olds, if you think back, they would have gone into secondary education in around 97. So think about what you were doing food technology-wise, home economics, catering in 1997. And as Jenny advised me last night, we didn't have the Food in Schools programme then either. It was before that kicked off. Fairly big sample size who were contacted initially by email, so they had to express interest and desire to participate in the programme. So initially they were just asked, presented with some statements, and they just had to say which ones they agreed with. Lots of them felt that they had learned to cook at home. Not surprisingly, a lot of them thought that the government needed to do more to help people to learn to cook. And interesting that they weren't really switched on by magazines, but liked to look for recipes online. 80% of them thought that cooking was very important, and around half claimed that they enjoyed cooking. Well over 50% said that they had prepared a meal from scratch. By that we mean not an assembled job where you're using ready-made sauces and you perhaps just cut up your vegetables, but everything prepared from basic ingredients. And they claim that they'd done that in the last few days. Now then, I think this is a really big claim, because I don't think when I was 25, even though I had a real interest in food, I could have said that I had 9 recipes fixed in my head. And we actually know from fairly detailed consumer research that actually the average repertoire of Mrs. Smith is around 6 dishes. But interestingly, what's driving the increase in acquiring skills is actually the younger generation. So it's the 25 to 44-year-old age group, which is a bit counterintuitive, because you would expect as people get older and more mature, their skills develop, they have a stronger interest, more time, and they retain things. But it's actually the reverse. Terribly strong feelings towards the benefits of home-prepared meals and healthy eating. And interestingly, 42% down at the bottom admitted that they probably weren't eating as healthy a diet as they would like to. They were also asked which dishes from a list they knew how to prepare. Well, you wouldn't be surprised at boiled eggs and sandwiches. You would hope by the time people got to 25 they could do that. But what I thought was very surprising is that over 50% claimed to be able to do a roast dinner. I don't think I'd have made that claim. In fact, roast dinners now put the fear of God into me. Any avoidance if possible. And also a fish dish. I thought that was quite surprising as well. What would make them learn more about cooking or be more interested? Not what you would expect, but recipes on the internet, and they weren't turned on by celebrity chefs or these cook packs that you can get from the fresh chilled sections in the retailers, you know, the Indian and the Chinese packs where you just lift it up, take it home, and you've got everything in a box. We do, however, know that retailers that use a celebrity chef to promote their recipes and some of their marketing campaigns, those consumers tend to have a better repertoire of recipes. So maybe it's just that those supermarkets are very good at presenting very quick, easy recipes that people will retain and reuse. They claim not to be influenced by adverts, food programmes and the likes of Jamie. And then finally, they were asked if they could recall the steps to make a spaghetti bolognese. Now, this is the point where the wheels fell off the wagon a bit. because you can see that there were quite a lot of different statements and people were a bit all over the place in terms of how they would do that. And the people that were collecting the data felt that whilst over 60% of those 25-year-olds claimed that they knew how to make a spag bol, the reality was that actually only 43% really had got their head round what they were doing. And when they were questioned about making a basic curry and also Yorkshire pudding, because remember the claim about roast dinners, the figures were very similar. Right, so that's a very brief snapshot of a fairly detailed piece of research. And it got Roy and I thinking, because we know that Michael Gove has a bit of a thing about savoury meals, and we've done a lot of work on the Meat and Education website to put new recipes up and to structure them in terms of what you and your students would like them to look like. But are we actually addressing this skills issue?